I mean, this guy just can't. This guy
actually,
just can't be the leader of an NFL team. I'm sorry. You wouldn't let him be the leader of your car dealership. If your top sales guy had, after a great open to his career selling GMCs or whatever car it is, has a rough year, and then he's like, all right, you know what? I'm going to take a week off, get back to who I am. And he shows up his first day. He has shaved his head. He's screaming at the customers. He's bad that day. And then for his performance review, brings his kids so you can't yell at him. You'd say, okay, we've got a problem. There have been 91 wins in the NFL this year. That win the Eagles just had, probably about the 88th best. Like, you squeaked one out against the Browns, who are playing a quarterback that their coach obviously doesn't want to play but has no choice but to play. That's the team you squeaked by, and you screamed at your own fans for it. And the kids at a press conference is allowed if you are soaked in champagne or have just been given an award. Not when you know you're about to be hounded by a notoriously tough media. And so, listen, Philly, you won the game. I'm happy for you. But everyone knows where this Sirianni story is ending. And the sooner they admit it, the better off the Eagles will be.
I think the kid at the press conference was the best call of the game.
Well, yeah, because it shielded it right.
Strategically,
Right.
But you go on the bye, you get your 3 stars back, and you still don't score in the first quarter, which is obviously
it was
5 games, a new Philly record. So you got that problem, and then you have the field goal blocked for a touchdown, and you're promising changes, and really
that's a huge problem, right?
Zero.
Yeah, look.
It was something you were supposed to fix.
It's a huge problem,
during the
and you struggle with it. And I thought some of that struggle was because he was missing his 2-star receivers. But now we have a week off. You should have spent a lot of time trying to address that, and you get the same result. And now you're antagonizing your own fans. So when anything bad happens in that stadium, it's just going to light them up against the group.
Like
You're becoming the distraction that you don't want to have your players create.
There were only 2 football positives to take out of it. Look, a win is a win. They need to stack wins, so that was good. But A.J. Brown's play was
awesome.
Great. And the fact that Jalen Hurts played a clean game.
Yeah.
Like, first 9 or 10 games?
Without a
first
turnover.
time without a turnover. But for Sirianni, look, Sirianni cannot strike the balance. Because we could see, as the supernatural funk has been going on, right? Yeah. And even this season, he was losing himself. Like, these last few weeks at press conferences, he was not confident. He was not sure of himself. He's over-explaining this. Like, he was lost. And I don't doubt maybe some players did say, look, you have to be yourself, but you also have to be mature and understand. I think the shaved head was a part of him being like, you know what? I'm going to be myself again.
You don't say.
Right.
Of course it was.
Right. So he cannot figure out how to strike the balance.
Does the shaved head have some symbolism I'm missing?
No, I just think he was like, you know what?
So
interesting, isn't it?
I just don't know what else it could mean.
I mean, what are the instances of folks who randomly, across American contemporary sports and pop culture,
don't you dare,
randomly showed up? I'm not going to name names.
It's usually after a breakup.
I'm just going to say shaved their head, and we're like, you know what? That was the moment we knew they really had it together. That's typically not what it's
you do these things, coach, as a head coach, you got to win. Like, big. And that's that protected him his first few years with the team. You got to win.
He needs to be cheering against the Jets tonight. Because if this experiment works in New York, where they fire the head coach and the Jets light it up, I'd say Dallas, I'd say him, I'd say Jacksonville, all those owners are going to be like, oh, that.
All right, well, the game already ended. I'm recording this after the game, very late night. It's now 4 o'clock in the morning. The Jets lost. Anyway, let's talk about this. First off, the whole shaving their head. As someone who shaves their head a lot and has shaved their head a lot in the past, yeah, there's been plenty of times when it was just like, it's like a reset. It doesn't mean that you're going through a breakup or this or that. It's definitely a reset, right? It's definitely like, all right, shaving my head, starting new. It's definitely kind of like a, let's kind of reorganize things. So I wouldn't say shaving your head is, first off, and Nick Wright knows that because Nick Wright used to shave his head when he was first on First Things First. So he knows that, that shaving your head is sometimes just like, a reset button, just something that you're doing. But yeah, I get it, especially if you never shave your head, and randomly shaving your head is like, well, what made you want to do something so drastic suddenly, or something so random? But that's just a little side note. Okay, listen. This is where me and Nick have 100%, always agreed on. And it's also a great reference anytime people say that I just always disagree with Nick for the sake of disagreeing, because I 100% agree with Nick that, like, Sirianni should absolutely be let go. There is fundamentally nothing that he does great for this team. He doesn't have them prepared. He's not this great offensive mind. He's just so all over the place. He's obviously not mature. He's yelling at fans after beating the Browns 20-16. It's bizarre. Having your kids at the press conference, like, you're not Steph Curry, dude. Like, what? Like, right? Like, you didn't win the finals. You're not Steph. Like, I just, like, don't know what you're doing here. Like, it's bizarre. It really is. And the Eagles are too good of a run franchise to, like, let this continue. And I think maybe to some degree, maybe they're just kind of like, yeah, we want to move on from Sirianni, but, like, we have our eyes set on Ben Johnson, someone else that they're like, we're not going to make a mid-season move right now because we're just going to let this play out. But I find concerning is that it was so obvious that he shouldn't have started this season, right? To me, that was very obvious. And it's just, they're just not prepared. The Eagles are not well coached. It's just bizarre. And again, when you look at how the Commanders have been playing, and I don't even mean just their quality of play, you could just see that they're prepared, that they're ready for the moment, that they're well practiced. You see that, to me, what really stands out. I see it with the Commanders. I see it with the Detroit Lions. Eagles fans, go watch. I'm sure you probably did watch it since you want to watch the Cowboys lose, but go watch that Lions versus Cowboys game, right? Like, look how prepared they were. Look how innovative that offense is. And I know Eagles fans believe that Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback than Goff, that A.J. Brown and Devontae are better receivers, that Saquon is a better running back, that the Eagles should have a comparable O-line or better O-line. And then ask yourself, well, then why can't that offense do that? The Cowboys are a better team than the Browns. Right? Like, that should, like, what the Lions did to the Cowboys should have been more similar to what the Eagles did to the Browns, right? And we saw what the Commanders did to the Browns. We saw what the Cowboys did to the Browns, right? I mean, it wasn't even close. Now, this score was slightly misleading, right? The blocked field goal to run back for a touchdown, that was one of those things that was just kind of unlucky. Like, those things can happen. And like I also said in my earlier clip, like, the problem is the way how the Eagles have been playing and Sirianni and all of that, like, they lose that benefit of the doubt, right? Because they've had some of these issues, they lose that benefit of the doubt. But like, it still does stand out to me. This game could have been a different score. It could have been, right, 20-9 or whatever. Like, that definitely was in the realm of possibility. And when you also look closer, you can see Jalen Hurts. I had all the stats for Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, and Jaden Daniels, all of them who played versus the Browns. And Jalen Hurts played the best, right? He was 16 for 25, 64% completion percentage. Dak was 19 for 32, 59% completion percentage. Jaden Daniels, 14 for 25, 56% completion percentage. Hurts had 2 touchdowns. Dak had 1 touchdown. Jaden Daniels had 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Hurts had 264 yards. Dak only had 179. Jaden Daniels had 238, but he also didn't play the fourth quarter. Hurts had 10.6 yards per attempt. Dak only had 5.6. Jaden had 9.5. Jaden had an 85 rating. Dak had an 85 rating. And Hurts played 126. So, like, that was all going. And so I was like, okay, so then where did the Eagles struggle? And surprisingly, it was the run game. The Cowboys, 4.1 yards per carry. The Commanders were 6.3 yards per carry. And the Eagles were 3.2 yards per carry. And it's funny because I didn't know that until I went and, after I watched this whole game and took all my notes, I was just kind of like, this is interesting. Let me compare it to the other NFC East teams who played the Browns. And that's when I, looked at the box scores and wrote down all the numbers and stuff like that. And I was like, well, this is interesting, because if you look at just the quarterback play and the passing yards, like, the Eagles played better. So like, what went wrong here? Why was this game so much more close than, say, when the Commanders played and when the Cowboys played? And I watched both those games, and I was just like, right on. If you just talk about, if you don't know anything about numbers or anything about any of these players, and you watch those games, you would say the Cowboys looked like they played better and the Commanders looked like they played better. But then you have Jalen Hurts' box score numbers, and you're like, but his numbers were better. So what's happening here? And it was the run game significantly. And it makes sense, because I was taking these notes and I look at this and I write down the game plan was clearly to run, but felt lazy and like to trying to appease critics. It felt forced. And that's exactly what it was. It was like, well, we know we got to run. We know people keep saying, why doesn't Saquon get the ball? Right? Like, it wasn't intentional. It wasn't innovative. It wasn't, they didn't really set up the run. It was like, well, we just have to run. Let's go. Right? And it just felt forced, and that's what happens. That's the type of game that you get there then. And it just doesn't really make sense. And I said this also in my previous video, that the Eagles should be doing kind of similar what the Green Bay Packers are doing, where they throw to set up the run. And you have A.J. Brown, you have Devontae, and you have Jalen Hurts, and you have Saquon Barkley, and normally you have Dallas Goedert, and you have a good enough or great enough offensive line. Like, you should be able to get these things going, and they're just struggling to get things going. They definitely played great defense against Deshaun Watson and that offense, but that just is what it, like that. You can't really celebrate that too much. They played, I think, comparably defensively as the Commanders and the Cowboys did versus the Browns. The only difference is the Cowboys especially were able to really get some turnovers and, turn those turnovers into points and short fields. And so that makes sense. But Saquon getting 18 carries for 47, that's just not good enough, right? I mean, that's really not. And so it's just trying to figure out, what do the Philadelphia Eagles need to do? But when you see that they have Devontae and AJ, I mean, Jalen Hurts had some really awesome moments, right? Him converting that 3rd and 2nd to, giving them the first down to kind of help ice the game. And then he makes that perfect throw to AJ to legitimately ice the game, right? Like, that's when you can see the greatness of Jalen Hurts and that Eagles offense. And you can't help but look at this team and just be like, man, if they just had better coaching, if they just practiced better, more seriously, like, they should be able to just look so much more powerful of a team. And I think if you're an Eagles fan, like, that has to be where you have to just be like, what is going on here? Like, why can't we do this? The talent is there, right? It really, really is. I just think that this team is just a coach away. It's so funny. Usually you look at this and say, oh, this team is a quarterback away, or, oh, they're just a wide receiver away, whatever it is, a running game away. This team, to me, is a coach away. They had the 2 great coordinators in 22, right? They had it, so you could see what they could do. They lost those coordinators, and Kellen Moore and Fangio are good. I don't think they're terrible, but you can see Sirianni is just, the dude's a nutcase. He really is. He just really is. I mean, my God, just give him a cheesesteak, give him some water ice and a soft pretzel. Send him on his way, buddy. See ya. Thanks for stopping by. Goodbye. I mean, I find it shocking, quite frankly, that the Eagles have not moved on from this. I mean, how you can have this roster and look like and just, when you look around the league, you could see what the Packers did to the Cardinals. You could see, or to the Packers did to the Cardinals. You could see what the Texans did to the Patriots, what the Lions did to the Cowboys. Right? We can look around the league what the Chiefs did to the Saints. We can see these commanding wins with a lot of these teams you could make the argument have an inferior roster, at least offensively, and then you have this. And it's like, this game shouldn't have looked like this. Although I made the argument that the score is slightly misleading, that it could easily be like 20-9, for instance, the Eagles should have hung 30 on this team easily, right? Easily. And the fact that they didn't is definitely a cause for concern. The question is, will they be able to regain momentum? Will they be able to get back to who they were in the past in 22? And, is it possible with Nick Sirianni as the head coach? I don't know. I really, really don't. Right now, you look at the Washington Commanders, and they're better coached. They're better organized. Their offense is more strategic and innovative and progressive and making defenses uncomfortable. And the best thing that you're hanging your hat on is that Jaden Daniels is a rookie. And you're like, okay, he's still a rookie, which means he could be flustered. He can get confused. You can show him things that he hasn't seen before. The Cowboys are a mess. I've said that from day one, that they're just not going to be good enough. And so it's like, and when you look at the NFC is wild right now. 4-2 Falcons, 4-2 Bucks. Like every team in the NFC North is the Vikings are 5-0, and then it's just 4 wins. So it seems that the Eagles you either win the division or you're not in the playoffs, right? Like this will definitely be the division where it's like you win the playoffs or you're not, or you win the division or you're not in the playoffs, right? It's hard for me to see a wild card. Now that could change because you're going to see the NFC North beat up each other now, right? They're going to have to play each other. I think there's only been one divisional game, and that was the Packers versus the Vikings. So you're definitely, these teams are obviously going to get some losses now in the NFC North, but it's real possible that they all find themselves in the playoffs. And so historically, like the Eagles are split with the Cowboys, usually beat the Commanders, but that's no longer a guarantee anymore with Jaden Daniels. And the Giants, I don't think the Giants are great at all, but at the same time, like, you don't have the confidence that the Giants, that the Eagles are just going to easily be able to scoop up 2 wins against the Giants, right? So it's, and unfortunately, they blew the game against the Falcons, which really hurts them because they should be 4-1, and then that gives you some more wiggle room to kind of drop a couple bad games that are just guaranteed to happen in the NFL. But you've kind of burned those cards now at this point, right? So it's going to be really interesting. I do really, truly believe in this roster, and I'm just curious to see how the Eagles continue to unfold. But if you're a fan, you should feel cautiously optimistic, right? I don't think you have to be pessimistic. I know a lot of Eagles fans probably saw that game, and they were either like, that's great, we got to win, or they were like, that was awful, what the heck is going on? I think it could be a combination of a little bit of both. It was good to get the win. It was good to try to, get AJ back, Devontae, Hurts, get all those guys, get some confidence, feeling good, show what this team truly can be. But there's still a lot of work to come from seeing a 20-16 versus the Browns off of a bye. You just would like to see a better game, but not the worst thing either. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Philadelphia Eagles, Sirianni yelling at the Philly crowd, and just the Eagles, level of play as a whole? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.